And I think it's going to take a lot of collaboration. I don't think that it's any secret that us alone are going to solve homelessness, and we're not the answer. I'm not the answer. It's a very collaborative approach. It's going to take everybody.
Welcome back to the Deep Fryer podcast. Pleased to be joined today by Angie Williams. She's the lead supervisor for community safety officers here in Penticton. Welcome, Angie.
Thanks for having me.
First and most important question, what is on a bylaw officer's duty belt or vest, I suppose?
Yes, thank you for noticing. Half of us tend to wear our tools on our vests. It's just personal preference. But what we've got batons, we've got OC spray, we wear handcuffs as well, and then typically flashlight just because the hours of our job.
How much does all that weigh?
That's a good question. I've actually never been asked that, but it's not light. I don't know. Altogether, it's probably like 15 pounds.
Okay. How long have you been a bylaw officer here in Penticton?
I've been with the city of Penticton for 5 years now.
Okay. And real quick, what's the distinction between bylaw officer and community safety officer?
So originally, city of Penticton started out with just straight bylaw officers, and then it came out in community that there was a bit more of a need to focus on community safety. And it really came down to two officers who were kind of willing to focus on that area. So we were rebranded as community safety officers. And our goal now, running with 8 officers, is to focus on community safety and what the community needs are. So that can change from year to year and council priorities and all that. But
you're not enforcing bylaw offenses per se as a CSO.
Well, we definitely are, especially with the new safe public places bylaw coming into action this year. But a lot of it is based around public safety, for example, sharps collection, wellness checks in the morning, that sort of thing. So it's definitely a little bit of both, but we specifically don't deal with anything such as traffic violations or good neighbor bylaw. That's traditional bylaw stuff that we don't have to deal with. Okay.
I'm going to get back to the evolving nature of the program. But first, Angie's back. Last week, she was in Halifax for a conference on homelessness, and her and another staffer from the city were selected to go and present on Penticton's approach. So I'll let, this seems like a big deal. I'll let you take it away, Angie. What was that all about?
So we were selected to present on more enforcement styles for dealing with homelessness in smaller rural communities, which is what Penticton is. So we were one of 2 presenters, which is a huge deal to be invited to a national homelessness conference and be able to talk about enforcement styles. A lot of the presentations were based around encampments. So our presentation was focused around the CSO program and basically building relationships and how that can be used to help deal with the complexities that we're facing with homelessness, addictions, mental health, and collaboration with stakeholders within this community, which is really unique, I think, to Penticton and smaller rural communities. So we presented on this topic, and it was actually very well received because I think it's such a different strategy than what everybody else is seeing.
What's the strategy is called the heart and the hammer. When I hear that, no offense, when I hear that, I think of like a USSR propaganda film or something like that, but I know it's not. But can you just kind of elaborate on what that means, the heart and the hammer?
For sure. I think our approach is very fair, but at times needs to be firm, and it's upholding those bylaws and those safety standards while also showing empathy and compassion and the desire to work with people to get them where they need to be to keep them safe is a big part of it. And that's not always just black and white. It's very much working in the gray and being comfortable with that.
It brings to mind parenting. Now, I don't want to compare your clients to kids, but as a parent, it's the heart and the hammer, right? There's got to be consequences, right? So that's what it's about, making people aware of consequences.
A little bit, you definitely need to have those consequences and those boundaries. Boundaries are very important. Otherwise, you get taken advantage of out here. But at the same time, also going that extra mile to help people be where they need to be. For example, sometimes it costs us nothing to just go to the shelter and ask if we can get somebody in, whereas maybe they weren't understanding that they could actually go in, right? So it's just going that extra step to set people up for success rather than just moving them along and moving them. Right?
Is that sort of what the old model in Penticton was before the rebrand to the CSO program, or how did the program itself change besides getting bigger?
Well, besides getting bigger, I mean, we didn't have a shelter. We didn't have any supportive housing. So once all that stuff kind of came online with BC Housing, it made it a lot easier to actually use some of those other branches and use some of the other stakeholders, outreach, social service providers to actually like work together and find some broader solutions rather than just take down your tent. Right?
Okay. And earlier this year, your status changed. Bylaw officers in Penticton became peace officers. What's the distinction there, and what additional powers did it grant you?
Great question. And I think what confuses people a lot of the times is the distinction as peace officers. But originally, we were already peace officers as long as we were doing our duty. And that's very clearly seen in case law, which is precedent law. So originally, before this came out, we were already peace officers as long as we were out here doing our job. But coming out with this, what it's done is really shown the province that our mayor and council here in Penticton really support what we're doing and support that backing of case law. It just gives us some extra support.
Have you ever arrested anybody? And I was wondering if it's post peace officer status or like how often are you arresting people?
Generally, they're pretty peaceful detentions. I think I really thrive with building relationships with folks in community, and I've never really had to get into too many physically aggressive situations, but that comes a lot with the relationships that you build or that you do not build. And if you want, I can give you an example if you want.
Sure, like what's a situation where you would have to arrest someone?
So there's been basically an indictable offense. So you're seeing an assault or, theft, we're obviously going to stop. We have a right and a duty to stop and support our community members. So for example, I'll just give an easygoing one. I had an individual came and he had 2 socket sets with him. And I said, that's suspicious. So I stopped and chatted with him, and because we know each other, he took the time to stop and chat with me. Long story short, I asked if there was any chance I was going to see him on a camera stealing socket sets. And he just said, yes. And so I just said, all right, man, can you just sit down? I mean, he was detained at this point, but that's a peaceful detention. And that's always the goal, right? I mean, he knew he was busted at that point. He didn't fight me on it. And long story short, the store got the socket sets back. And so that's the goal. That's not always.
So you're not kicking down doors. So
definitely try to avoid kicking down doors. That's for sure.
Excuse the interruption, my friends. This is just a friendly reminder that the Deep Fryer podcast is 100% listener supported this season, which means if you like what you hear, we need your help to keep it going. There are 2 really easy ways to do that. One is a simple e-transfer, $1, $5, $10, whatever you can spare. Send that to deepfryerpodcast@gmail.com. The other option is a $5 a month subscription on patreon.com. And in exchange for your $5, you'll get a newsletter every Saturday morning of show weeks called Penticton to a Crisp, in which I offer my humble opinion on the 5 news stories that actually mattered during the week that was. You can find more details of that on our homepage, deepfryerpodcast.ca. You'll also find out a bit more about where your money goes and what we have planned for the show in the future. Thanks for listening. I wanted to ask, there's this perception that I've heard people say this to officers before, something about wannabe cops. Is it true that all bylaw officers are wannabe cops?
That's a funny one. I mean, I think if we wanted to be cops, we'd probably go out and be cops, but they're very different jobs with different mandates, different authorities, and different rules of engagement. I mean, we function in a totally different realm. We're not focused on criminal aspects. We're focused on social issues and the complexities of that. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this job is we're not tied to the black and white. You've broken the law. It's more, if you look at it holistically, it's just more fluid and collaborative. And there's complex problems that we're trying to solve together as a community. And that's the best part about the community safety officer program is having that ability to just do whatever the community needs.
I suppose it's a bit of an unfair question because in any profession, I'm sure there's people who want to be cops, right? I'm sure there's reporters who want to be cops and everything else. So anyway, there are some of the bylaw officers in town, they're big, burly, large men. You are not that, although you are quite tall. What does that change the way people interact with you or the way you go about your job?
As opposed to being a big burly guy? I've been afforded many challenges in my career. I've had to work very hard as a woman in this field. I don't think that's any surprise or shock to anybody. Being in a field like this as a woman it's a tough go. But I don't think that I get treated any differently. And I think back to relationships, a lot of it is based on relationships. I get berated just as much as any other officer, you know what I mean? I mean, we do our best to build relationships, and that helps me for sure if I put more time into it. But they definitely don't treat me any differently or any better or any worse because I'm a woman.
I will jump back to this question. I wanted to ask you what training you received to be a bylaw officer. What do you have to do to become one?
Okay. So education-wise, we definitely look that you take the Bylaw 1 and 2 courses through JIBC. That's always beneficial, or any courses, criminology, anything related to social work. But then most of our training is actually in-house training because the job is so specific to community that it's really important that we have the flexibility to train according to community needs. So for example, we do a 3-month coaching program. So staff are put with a senior officer for training in the field. And then we also require the first aid, the mental health first aid, naloxone administration, use of force, and 3-day training course to be able to carry any of the tools that we carry. So a lot of it is in-house and needs specific.
So there's no like bylaw officer diploma program or anything like that?
It's a certificate program through the Justice Institute, but it's not mandatory.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. The evolving role of bylaw officers in Penticton, as you said, it went from bylaw officers to CSOs and on and on. Where do you see this going in 5 or 10 years down the road?
5 or 10 years down the road. Hopefully still here. But I mean, ideally, it's always the thought that you work yourself out of this kind of work. But I don't see that happening. But we've actually come up with a fully new program. Sorry. A fully new program. It's the Youth Community Safety Officer. So what we've done with this, and this is totally new, nobody else is doing this in Canada. We have a community safety officer working with a peer from Foundry, Penticton, and they're going to be focused on advocacy, outreach, and specifically youth-focused prevention, which is huge because I think we all know the answer to these social issues is prevention. And I think that often gets missed. So being able to take this on as community safety officers has been a huge opportunity for us. And just to collaborate with Foundry, who are totally focused on youth in our community, it's going to be just an amazing opportunity for us.
I meant kind of maybe bigger picture, like the role of CSO. I know you're not police, but it's become more like police over the years in terms of everything else we talk about. Do you see, and that's evolved along with BC social problems. But do you just see it rolling along, continually evolving until these problems are solved, so to speak? Or
well, yeah, and I think it's going to take a lot of collaboration. I don't think that it's any secret that us alone are going to solve homelessness, and we're not the answer. I'm not the answer. Just cops are not the answer. It's a very collaborative approach. It's going to take everybody. And 5 years from now, I mean, I guess that really depends on what the community needs are, because we're very flexible and we'll just do whatever it takes to keep the community safe.
I interviewed some homeless people here last week, and I had to edit this part out, but this gentleman was pretty certain that when bylaw officers seize items, that they sell them. I don't necessarily buy that, but can you just clear it up and tell us where stuff goes if you have to take someone's stuff or what have you?
Well, the goal is to never, ever take somebody's stuff. Generally, if we're ever clearing anything, it's because it's not somebody's stuff. It's either been left abandoned, or the main thing that we run into is that it's left with hazards that could actually harm somebody in the community. For example, sharps is a big one. Any of that drug paraphernalia, substances that are on it that you just don't know what it is, right? So those are things that are generally being cleared, and that's very clear in our policy. So I'm pretty confident saying that we don't take people's stuff and sell it.
I was just wondering, like, I think in some cities they'll put people's belongings in the storage or something like that. Is there anything like that in Penticton?
No, there's not anything like that in Penticton, and the main reason is because of fentanyl. So fentanyl can be absorbed through the skin, which puts us at risk if we're storing anything. And also opens us up to a lot of liability issues too. So
okay, fair enough. Last question about being a bylaw officer. I wanted to ask you: Are you winning out there? And then I thought, what does winning even look like? So, what does winning look like to you? And are you winning?
Yeah, so I guess that depends on your definition of winning. Are we winning? I feel like we're winning. I think if you look at winning, sometimes for those little wins, you really just got to take those and run with them.
That's a good interaction with someone, a peaceful resolution.
It could be picking up a sharp off the sidewalk, getting somebody into housing, connecting them to the social worker, getting them to court. Like it could be a lot of things. And that if you look at winning as a variety of things, I think we are winning. And I think the main part is that we're giving community a peace of mind. And it's right in the title, right? Community safety. So as long as we're doing that, I think we're winning.
The small wins are adding up to big wins.
I think so.
Okay. Anything else you wanted people to know about bylaw officers in Penticton or the bylaw program?
Yeah, just the community safety officer program, I think, is seeing a lot of successes. And I hope that if anybody ever sees anything in their community and needs somebody to call or are unsure, just give us a call and we'll direct you where either you need to call or we'll attend at the very least, just to help provide that extra buffer.
What's the best way to get a hold of you? Is there an emergency 24/7 line or?
No, so we're not 24/7 yet. No, so we're working till 11 o'clock right now. You can phone the main office. It's posted online. I think it's 250-490-2440. And our lovely intake folks will direct you where you need to go. And I think we start at 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had someone working till 11, taking calls till 11.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, moving on. This season of the podcast, we've added some personal questions for each of our guests at the end, just to get a better picture of them. As I said with Blake Lavin, he's not two-dimensional, and neither is Angie. I can attest to that. So the first question for you, Angie, is: I saw blank in blank and wished Penticton had that too.
I saw youth housing in larger municipalities, and I wish we had that in Penticton.
Okay.
Yeah.
This would be for at-risk youth or kids that are
Youth housing, yeah.
Yeah.
Youth housing. Housing is a huge issue here in the Okanagan and BC. Everywhere. Let's just say everywhere. Youth housing in larger municipalities is more available, and I wish we could have that here.
Okay. Next question. My most spectacular failure was blank, and it taught me blank.
Oh, well, that's a tough one. My most spectacular failure, I think, just trying to navigate this multitude of systems and feeling like if you don't get something done fast enough that it's actually going to affect somebody's life out here. You know what I mean? Like it's hard when they're depending on you to do something in a system that's difficult and complex, and you feel like a failure sometimes when you can't navigate quick enough, and it does have real impacts on the people out here on the street.
Yeah. So there's a sense of urgency about your work that sometimes the system doesn't share.
There is. And I think everybody who works in this kind of field feels that as well. That includes people at the shelter and people at BC Housing. I mean, we're all in it to do the right thing, but it's not always not always as easy as it sounds. But learning from that, what I've learned from it is to collaborate as much as we can, make as many phone calls as it takes just to get the answers you need or get the outcome that you need.
Okay. Next question. My superpower is blank.
My superpower specifically on the street here is connecting with people. I find it very easy, and having conversations and taking the time to get to know your population is huge.
Okay. What's your main tool or your tips for people who have a hard time connecting with others? Jokes, friendliness? Or...
Definitely. I do a lot of joking, but I spend a lot of time being patient and learning about them. People love talking about themselves.
Yes.
And sometimes that's all they need to just start talking. And then you actually learn a lot about what they need and their past and why they are the way that they are.
Yeah. So principally about, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So
totally.
That principle. Okay.
100%.
Okay. Last personal question here. I've learned not to worry so much about blank.
I've learned to not worry about social media.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've actually gotten rid of Facebook and social media because I'm posted on there all the time in uniform, and I can't win for anything. It seems like I've just gotten rid of it, and I'm just going to do my thing and not worry about what people think. Yeah. Okay.
Good advice. That's all for today with Angie Williams from the CSO program here in Penticton. Thank you, Angie.
Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure speaking to people who are passionate about their work, and that comes across quite clearly with Angie Williams. And I do have a newfound appreciation for Penticton's bylaw officers and what they're doing out on the streets. So that's the end of episode 3. Don't forget, we're 100% listener supported this year, which means if you like what you hear, I need your help to keep it going. It's an easy way to do that. You can e-transfer to deepfirepodcast@gmail.com, or you can check out our $5 a month member support package on Patreon. With that comes Penticton to a Crisp, which is a Saturday newsletter in which I give my humble opinion on the 5 stories that mattered in the week that was. More details on all the fundraising efforts and where your money will go at deepfirepodcast.ca. Thanks for being here.